I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6 p.m. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Here.
President Lima.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit out the doors labeled number 1 or 2 in the back of council chambers to the back parking lot or front lawn of Town Hall. Moving on to meeting minutes from prior meetings. We have 4 sets this evening: June 20th, 2024 open session, July 23rd, 2024 open session, July 23rd, 2024 executive session, and August 1st, 2024 open session. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as a block?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
A second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Here. Yes, sorry.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
And at this time, I'll seek a motion to approve the minutes.
Make the motion.
Motion
Second.
by Vice President Blank, second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, did you receive any edits?
No, I did not.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Madam Clerk, please reflect in the record that Councilman Pasqua is now present. At this time, we will now move on to public hearings and, public comment on docketed items only. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment on docketed items only? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Bradford Mayor, 360 Hope Furnace Road. Thank you for your time. I am on the school committee, but I only speak for myself tonight. I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee as a whole. I just wanted to address the topic later on tonight, the Auditor General's letter. I don't have any short or long-term solutions right now, but I know the path to get there is by working together. Both all of the town council, all the school committee in the same room at the same time. There used to be joint meetings during budget season. There also used to be joint meetings with our state legislators. Those have gone by the wayside the past few years. I think we need to get back to that if we are to find a solution together that is amenable to all parties. Political grandstanding only promotes disdain and divisiveness and is not the path forward. But I think tempered resolve is. Thank you for your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public in chambers like to make a public comment on docketed items only? Come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Kane, 185 Reed Schoolhouse Road. Is it on?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. I just want to bring to your attention, I know it's on the agenda for tonight. It's for the presentation that Laura Young was going to present for the mitigation for the flooding. I just want to bring attention to page 169, number 32. It entails a third layer of protection for the future homeowners and prevents legal action involved in this town. I would ask that you ask Laura to explain it a little bit further. I think that it would be a great thing to put a third layer on our planning developments. Right here it says, explore the potential for including third-party inspections as part of the development inspection process and within town construction projects when appropriate to reduce risk and improve engineering. And I do understand that our planning department has done great work on this, but all the prior developments that we've had in, say, the past 5 years, they have had flooding issues. So I think that this would just protect the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public in chambers who'd like to make a public comment on docketed items only? Any members of the public on Zoom, please raise your hand to be let in and unmute yourself. Public comment on docketed items only. Public comment going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. At this time, I will take a motion to take the agenda out of order.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And at this time, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Pasqua. At this time, members of the public, the council will go into executive session for the following. Item A, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, litigation matters, Social Holdings LLC, v. Town of Coventry. B, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, litigation matters, Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee and others, v. Commerce Park Realty LLC. And item C, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A1 for job performance, re town manager. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
so concerned about my candidate. Thank you, members of the public, for your patience. At this time, I will take a motion to come out of executive session.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank. Second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And I will seek a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank.
Second.
Second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session to discuss items A through C listed in the agenda. A discussion was had, no votes were taken. We will now go back to report of the town manager. We've got a few updates this evening. I'll turn it over now to Mr. Perillo.
So the first update is on Moody's rating and outstanding audits. Just want to kind of give everyone a timeline on how the whole Moody's withdrawal came about. So April of this year, Moody's first reached out asking for the drafts of the FY22 audit. At that time, we advised them that we did not have it ready at that time. They reached back out in June asking for the same document. We were able to provide them the draft financials for 22, telling them that we're working on the final disclosure and all the other documents needed to finalize that. Our last conversation with them was 2 weeks ago. They reached out saying that they needed the 22 finals by Tuesday, which was the 10th. We provided those, and we also scheduled a phone call for the 11th, which was Wednesday. It was me, Director Savetti, and bond counsel Steve Massaroni on the call. At that time, they had received FY22 and told us they needed the draft of FY23 by September 30th. We advised them that we would not have that by September 30th, and would it be possible to grab an extension like we had for FY22? She advised us that she would get back to us. We heard back from her on Thursday saying that an extension was not granted because they have a change in policy since the end of COVID, and they needed it by September 30th. I reached back out to them on Friday and said it would not be possible for us to get them the draft by September 30th. In the meantime, we were talking to CLA, and CLA said if they get all of our information, they may be able to get it done for us by October 31st. So because we weren't able to hit the September 30th deadline, Moody's told us they were going to withdraw our rating. So at that point, I asked them, so is this going to be effective October 1? And she said, no, it's going to be effective 10:30 this morning. So there was really no warning that this was going to come. So they did withdraw our warning, withdraw it, and that's where we are currently. So Steve Massaroni, our bond counsel, and the solicitor have made aware of it. We're working on towards hitting the goals we need in order to try to get it back. I did reach out to Moody's and spoke to Nick Lehman, who's part of their team, and he gave us a checklist of what we needed in order to reapply. Basically, it's the 23 audited financials. He needs 2024 year-end estimate results and 2025 budget overview. They're also going to be looking for our tax base value, our top 10 taxpayers, and our top 10 employers. So he said once we give that to him, there'll be a meeting and we can reapply for our rating, and that usually takes approximately 2 weeks. So we're working towards the goal of getting them all the information they need, with the ultimate goal of having our bond rating back by January, when we intend to go out to bond for the school department for the $25 million.
Discussion from the council. Vice President Blank.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate the details. If you could share that checklist with the entire council, just so we're all aware of exactly what they've been asking for, I
Sure.
would greatly appreciate it. I've been saying for years, the financial statements are extremely important. Moody's is one of the main reasons. Having this withdrawal of our rating, essentially, in my opinion, puts us in junk status, makes any future bond more expensive on the taxpayers. So I certainly want a plan, not only to get our rating back, but also want to understand the process going forward to make sure that this never happens again, what policies and procedures we're going to put in place when Moody's wants the normal financial statements, and smooth that process over so that we never lose our rating again. I think per the press release, we were one of 5 municipalities in the country that lost the rating that day. So to say that I'm embarrassed is an understatement. I really don't want our town to not have a rating. So I just really want to ensure that we put controls in place so that this doesn't happen again.
Councilman Pasqua.
I agree with everything Council Member LeBlanc said. It's right on money.
Councilman Capaldi.
I agree as well. We need to have these checkpoints so we don't get, it just comes at us right there. We need checkpoints throughout the time to make sure we're staying on track to reaching our goals, and that did not happen here.
I think it would be really helpful if either yourself, Manager Prillo, or Mr. Savetti could help for the public to understand where the delays came from, why we're in the position we're in terms of the delay. I think that the public deserves to have a little bit more clarity there, and understand what we're doing moving forward to make sure that I think this council has given administration a long leash on this, and we've been supportive, and we want this team to succeed, but at this point, the buck stops with the council. So if you could please just shed some light for the public in terms of what has been keeping these from being finished, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, so I think we're just still trying to catch up. So I know it's a long story. You guys have heard that for the last year and a half that we've been here, but I think it's balancing, catching up from the sins of the past with running day-to-day operations and keeping things afloat along with all of the new things we have going, like the Pave It Forward program, the revolving capital fund. It's just balancing all of that stuff. So we were delayed on our side. The school side was delayed in getting all the documents that CLA needed. And going forward, our goal is to, once we have 22, 23, and 24 done, I think we're going to be in a much better position going forward to keep up with those checklists and those timelines to keep all the information flowing. So CLA has an easier time handling our audits going forward.
Councilman Pasqua.
Also for the public, can we get clarification on reduction versus a reduction of a rating versus a loss of a rating? What it means for the future for the town, how it affects us differently, and what exactly happened to us, which of the two? Because there's a lot of misinformation going around about reduction versus loss of rating.
The solicitor's going to take that.
If I may, Madam President, from a regulatory standpoint, Moody's is a rating agency. Generally, what people hear is that there's been an upgrade or
We good? It's not you.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Generally, it's you hear about a downgrade or an upgrade in rating, which is a direct reflection on the fiscal health of the community or the governmental subdivision that's being rated. In this particular case, it was not a downgrade. It was a withdrawal. Both have the practical effect of impacting borrowing. Right now, we're unable to borrow because we don't have a rating. If we had a rating and it wasn't a good rating, then it would have an impact on your cost of borrowing in a negative fashion. If it was upgraded, your borrowing rates or your cost of borrowing would be appreciably less. In this case, it's been withdrawn. Generally, in the case of withdrawal, once you meet the reporting requirements with them, they restore you at the same level, assuming, of course, that what's been reported is fiscally favorable. What does that mean? That you have money in the bank in terms of your unencumbered fund balance, and that you have positive cash flow, and that you're running a surplus or certainly trending in the direction of a surplus. And if you don't, that you've done what you've needed to do as a governmental subdivision to eradicate your deficits. With respect to Coventry, Coventry does have positive cash flow. Coventry does have a significant fund balance of approximately $16 million. I beg your pardon?
16.
I beg your pardon, 16. My apologies. It is 16. And, you know, by all accounts, this past fiscal year shows a surplus of 1.7 million. So a downgrade certainly doesn't sound as though it's in the offing if those numbers prove out. But we need to obviously get the 22, 23 audits in and finish the 24. So that's what the downgrade or the upgrade versus the withdrawal. It's, I mean, you can't go out and borrow, but it doesn't mean you're in terrible financial shape.
Vice President Blank.
Only because surplus was just discussed. So 16 million in surplus is fantastic, but when your liabilities exceed your assets by $103 million, and we were just part of our agenda that's going to be discussed next, we went from a $800,000 deficit to a $5 million deficit on the schools. I think you need to also incorporate that in the discussion when we talk about financial health. Just my 2 cents. Just want to throw that out there.
Anyone else? So just lastly on this, in my opinion, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues, but this is just completely unacceptable. I don't need to hear the mention of, well, the school department, we're waiting on this. I don't want to hear that. I want to know that we are accountable for ourselves. I want to know that we are meeting all of the deadlines that the town needs to meet. So when I was on a phone call with Mr. Cervetti and Mr. Perillo on Friday the 13th, I just realized when this call came. I was told a phone call happened with CLA, our auditing firm, that October 31st was possible for FY23 audits to be delivered. And I'm going to hold the both of you to that. And it's drafts. And this, as soon as, if you find out that you cannot meet that deadline, I want to be the first phone call, and I want a special meeting called, and I want to know why. And the only reason that I should expect to hear of why it's not going to be done for October 31st is we're all set. We're just waiting for the school department. That's the only thing that I should hear. So I have to set that expectation. We should demand better on behalf of the people that we represent, and we should want to be better than the revolving door and what we may have seen in the past here. So that's the standard that I would like to see. It sounds like that's the standard the rest of this council would like to see. We want the both of you to succeed, because when you succeed, this council succeeds, this town succeeds. So that's the ask I have publicly, and that's the ask that I'm hoping that you will move to deliver on, or I'm really asking you to deliver on. So with that, we can move on to the next item.
So just to follow up on the audit, so we are trying. So the goal, like you just said, 23 draft end of October. CLA is going to be out here end of 23 to finish up their work and start 24 with the goal of having 24 done December 31st. We're on schedule. So that's where we are with the audits. That was discussed today during the Auditor General's call. Obviously, we all know that we got a letter from the Auditor General after the school had submitted their notice that they are $5 million deficit. So the Auditor General has assigned a in-person meeting October 9th at 1 o'clock with leadership on both sides to discuss the path forward and how we're going to address the deficit. That's the Auditor General's letter. B. C, the noise ordinance. I spoke to the chief.
Hang on one second.
Sorry.
I think Jamie had, I'm sorry, Vice President Blank had a
It was more so just for the public's knowledge. So draft FY '23 by October of 2024. I just want the public to know that the state law is for the FY '23 financial statements to be issued by December 31st of 2023. So FY '23 is quite late. But I was going to ask, but he went into it. FY '24, the expectation is we're going to have FY '24, which is June 30th of 2024, issued, not drafts, by December 31st.
That's our goal.
Just want to clarify that.
That's our goal.
And I would say it's the same thing that I just mentioned for FY '23. The second you know that we're not gonna make December 31st, I want the council to be the first to know, and I want to know publicly what's holding it up and what resources are needed to get it to that place. So, all right,
Very good.
item C.
Noise ordinance, I reviewed the noise ordinance with the chief. We don't see any dramatic changes. I know there's an issue of the summer with Briar Point. So we may want to look at maybe some changes regarding noise implementation and there at Briar Point in particular. And obviously if we go forward with any kind of Johnson's Pond Beach. But I think the noise ordinance as is fine. I was also asked to do a little research as to what other municipalities are doing for enforcement. So we've issued none this year. West Warwick's issued none. South Kingston's issued none. Johnston's issued one, and Cranston's issued 3. So it's not a heavily cited violation throughout the state because the parameters are pretty tough. You have to meet that 65 decibel level for 15 continuous minutes. So once someone calls and the police show up, the music gets turned down and the violation is no longer there. We are having issues where business zoning hits residential zoning and that conflict there, where both parties have a right to operate their business and live peacefully. We've been trying to monitor that. I've been there at 6 a.m. in the morning. The police chief's been there. We've been doing some monitoring. There haven't been any violations. The owner of that company has accommodated us by parking his trucks differently in order to lessen the noise. But at this time, we don't see any violation of the noise ordinance relative to Autoland.
If I may, I think there's been discussion a few times about giving the police department the resources. It sounds like we have one noise meter. I don't know what the formal name is, decibel meter. Is that something that we need to consider a one-time purchase with either the ARPA or what's the name of the funds? Nope. The federal thing, what's it called? Whatever it may be. Yeah. Yes.
Forfeiture money?
Seizure money, forfeiture money. I don't know what it is, but like, it would be great to know from representation from the police department if that is something that would be helpful to them. Because it sounds like there's been multiple times where there's noise complaints in 2 different places at the same time. And we have only one decibel meter.
Yeah.
So if we could assess with the police department what tools they may need to help better enforce or to feel like they're equipped to provide the most fair and accurate assessment of a call of that nature, that would be helpful for the council to determine next steps.
We could follow up on that.
Any further discussion on this one? Okay.
Pass that down, Steve. So the next item is the canvassing election postcard. I believe we had interest in sending this postcard out in order to notify people of the new changes to the charter, where there's the 2 town-wide council positions along with the 5 districts. So Councilwoman Capaldi assisted in putting this together for us. This is the actual postcard that we're looking to send out. The Board of Canvassers has looked at it and approved it. I got some quotes from a local print shop. So basically there are 14,000 households in Coventry. So if we wanted to send these out, prices vary anywhere from $2,000 to basic, which is black and white paper stock, up to $4,000 for colored card stock, which is a little thicker. So I don't know what direction the council wanted to go in, but that's basically what we want to send out, notifying the people at least this first time that the electoral process is changing.
Thank you. I think this is important to do. My feedback would be that the bottom section should be eliminated in favor of sharing links where folks can see their voter registration status, information about early voting and what time that is and where it can be done, and also where they can go find where their polling place is. I think the bottom is more policy and editorialized, and we need to keep this to the facts. So that's why I appreciate the top two sections. I think the bottom section should be in favor of voter information. Councilman Capaldi.
What do you mean bottom? You mean this over here?
Yes.
All right, just tell me what you need and I'll put it in.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Vice President Blank.
The first bullet point, it says you will vote for one candidate who is running in your district. That's technically true for 2, 3, and 5, not for everybody. Because 1 and 4, anybody who gets this in that district particular is not having a council person. They would be voting for the at-large only. So I didn't want, I hear you. So I just wanted to call that technicality out if we care.
Yeah, that might get a little convoluted trying to explain that on this postcard.
I think we can.
I just don't want to, I don't want people getting confused going, oh, well, how come I'm not voting for somebody in my district?
Yeah.
When we're telling them that that's essentially what this communication is telling them that they need to do.
Yeah, so basically, there would be a bullet that says voters in districts 1 and 4 will be electing
townwide.
one school committee candidate and choose from 2 candidates for at large. That would be for everybody. And then the next one would, the other bullet could say just voters in districts 2, 3, and 5 will choose one district council district candidate.
So this just has council members too. You want to add schools as well?
That they should know, yeah. But other than that, I think this is necessary. I know that we didn't expend funds. We had budgeted funds for if the council didn't pass a budget with a supermajority, that we would have that referendum, and we didn't use that. I think that was about 10 grand. So I think we have the funds.
You want to go the postcard? I mean the card stock color, the $4,000 option.
It sounds like we have the budget for it.
Mhm.
Councilman Pasqua.
I think looking at this, it might be helpful to put one or several QR codes on this card so people can scan and go to maybe a landing page of the town's website that gives you all the links and information you need for all this stuff. I know I could see the analytics when I sent out stuff with QR codes and they were used big time. So a lot of people are pretty familiar with them. So if they get it, they can flip it over and gives you a link to all the stuff that we're talking about,
Yeah.
voter registration.
I still
you
think
know.
write out the hyperlinks because we have folks that are seniors who may not be subject
Agreed.
to that. So, but I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think a couple QR codes would be good too. Yep.
So thank you, Councilman Capaldi. And thank you, Dan, for working on this. Appreciate it. Anything else? Councilman Pasqua.
Were we planning on making anything on the town's website informational wise?
I
Like,
think to just repurpose the copy that's on the canvassing page. Maybe
Mm.
put something on the top of the website, the banner, whatever, to link to this, but
yeah.
I think you just take the copy on this.
Can I just ask, where do you want to charge us again? Because the line item you're referring to, that budget closed. So we don't know if we're going to
Oh.
utilize this year's all-day referendum budget or line item.
Then I guess ARPA, I mean, it's $4,000.
Contingency.
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 Okay.
Anything else? Councilman Capaldi.
Town manager. I would suggest printing this on white cardstock because you're going to use 4-color print.
White card stock.
Yeah, with 4 colors.
Thank you. I think normally we would get in the weeds on something, but this is an extenuating circumstance where I think all of us have heard a lot of misinformation lack of understanding since the charter question passed to add 2 seats 2 years ago. So I think this is necessary in the spirit of transparency. All right, and then last one. Sewer use.
Regarding the sewer use bill delay, so I inappropriately made the assumption that the council adopting the facilities plan in January would necessitate a sewer use rate increase and a minimum based on the recommendations from Fuss and O'Neill. I was incorrect. I was trying to be proactive by sending out a little blurb on the website so people knew what the increase in their bill was, but that was taken off the website and Facebook. So we are following up with sewer rate increase discussion at the next sewer sub meeting on October 3rd.
Any discussion on that? All right, thank you. Moving on to report from the finance director, Mr. Savetti.
Yes, I guess the council had requested a comparison of the draft that was issued in May of 24 to the final issued draft, or the final issued financial statement, excuse me, which was issued in September of 24 relative to the June 30th, 22 audit. So I'll go through them. I provided you all with a copy here. If you don't want me to read the detail, just let me know. But so the government-wide financial statement and net position on pages 17 to 18, the business type activities, intangible assets increased by 4,528,063. That was the result of, again, in fiscal 22 is the first year that the towns now recorded the liability related to intermunicipal agreement with the town of West Warwick. In relation to that, I had proposed that was a capital contribution. After the auditors reviewed it, they recorded an initial in the draft as an intangible asset. Unfortunately, their initial recording of it recorded the intangible at what the value was as of June 30th of 22 rather than what the initial value was. So that's where the additional 4.5 million came from. Governmental activities, unearned revenue, liability increased by 4.8 million. That was a result of interpretation of the opera funding. As presented to the auditors, I gave them in their initial draft, included the opera funding as revenue. In accordance with the GASB standards for a fund level financial statement, that revenue is recognized when it's measurable and available. In my opinion, it's measurable and available. We have the funds sitting in our pocket, but then the Auditor General's office came out and said they want to show that as basically deferred revenue or unearned revenue. So they reclassify that, taking it out of revenue and recording it as a liability. And now we're recognizing it as it's utilized. Also, governmental activities, accrued liabilities increased by 888,000 approximately. That was an adjustment on the school department side where, at least over the last several years, they have not been accruing the pension that's due on the summertime payroll for the teachers. So they went back, they recorded that. Again, that was caught when we were looking at the current status of the school department, seeing how they finished for fiscal 24. We set up a meeting with school finance personnel. I reviewed their documents and we realized that they weren't recording that. So that was one of the last changes that was pushed through the 22 audit, excuse me. So as a result of those, the governmental activities net position or the equity decreased by approximately 5.7 million. The business type activities net position increased by 4.5 million. I'm sorry, did I say governmental activities decreased by 5.7? Excuse me. On the government-wide statement of activities, which is page 19, we had some restatements. So the opening net position, governmental activities decreased by approximately 903,000. Again, that was due to a restatement in the school department because of the failure to accrue the liability as just mentioned. Business type activities increased by 4.5 million, which again, the restatement relative to the intangible assets. So overall, the total opening net position increased by 3.6 million. The change in net position for the fiscal year ended June 30, 22, government activities decreased by roughly 4.9 million, which is previously stated that's primarily the result of the classification of the opera funding. The initial draft showed that as revenue, whereas the final defers that revenue to a future year. And again, total decreased by 4.8 million. On the balance sheet, so for the fund level financial statements, which is on page 20, The town's general fund, there were no changes. The school unrestricted fund, accrued expenditures increased by 886,000. The unassigned school unrestricted fund deficit increased by 886,000, again, related to the pension accrual. The other governmental funds, unearned revenue increased by 4.9 million. Accrued expenditures increased by 863,000. And so you had the restricted fund balance decreased by roughly 4.9 million, unassigned fund balance decreased by 863,000. That 863,000 there was a small fund within the school department that for some reason it was missed on the initial draft. And then again, the 4.8 million, as we mentioned a few times, relative to the ARPA funding. So total fund balance decreased from 27,424,000 to 20,662,000, or a decrease of 5.8 million. On the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the governmental funds, which is on page 22, the town's general fund, total revenues increased by approximately 331,000. Expenditures increased by approximately 331,000. So no change. That was just a reclassification. They were netting some of the activity. We had an account that had negative expenditures, so they just reclassified it to show, to gross up the activity. On the school unrestricted fund, total expenditures increased by 16,000, which means the net change in the fund balance or the loss decreased by 16,229. The fund balance beginning of the year decreased, as previously mentioned, by 903,000. Fund balance deficit at the end of the year increased by 886,000. Again, the school department strictly related to the pension accrual issue on the summertime payroll. Non-major governmental funds and the fund level financial statements, total revenues decreased by 4.8 million. Total expenditures decreased by 863,000 for a net change in fund balance decrease of 4.8 million. Again, that's the ARPA funding classification.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just wanted to add a quick comment. Mr. Sabetti, thank you for going through these changes, and I know you're kind of halfway through. I think the most important call out is what you wrote at the very bottom of the first page, where you said total change in fund balance decreased from a surplus of 3.4 million to a deficit of 1.5 million. So the whole reason why I think this agenda item came on is part of my ask. CLA presented this in May 2024. We didn't actually have issued statements until September. As you can tell, numbers changed by 5.7 million, 4.5 million, 3.6 million. I think at the end of the day, my point here was first, we went from a surplus to a deficit. We're talking millions of dollars, right? Added to the fact that we have an auditor general letter that says that we have an $800,000 deficit to a $5 million deficit. I just feel like deficits are coming all over the place right now. And I want the public to understand that. But I also want the public to understand that and the council, I don't think we should have a presentation from our external auditors until we have issued financial statements, because decisions can be made off of drafts. Like we could have taken that into a budget and used those drafts, but we were off by millions of dollars. So that's really the point that I wanted to make here. But I certainly appreciate you going through all these changes.
The statement of net position proprietary funds, pages 24 and 25. Again, the change was related to the classification of the intangible assets, recording that intangible asset up to the original gross amount, so changed by 4.5 million. Statement of revenues, expenditures, changes in net position. Again, beginning net position increased by the 4.5, the ending net position increased by 4.5. Statements of fiduciary net position, no changes on either the revenue or the statement of changes in that position. So those are your pension trust funds and other custodial funds. And then the required supplementary information, the balance sheet, the schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in the fund balance for the general fund on pages 101 to 104. On a budgetary basis, revenues increased by 267,000. And some of these were just reclassifications. So you see this, the school other revenues decreased by 184,000. But when you see down in the expenditures, you see the expenditures also decreased by 184,000. So we were matching the amount. That's just the pass through from the general fund to the school department. We were coinciding having the two amounts agree. The town clerk revenue increased by 324,000. Interest earnings decreased by 19,000. Recreation revenue decreased by 157,000, and miscellaneous receipts increased by 304,000. On the expenditures overall increased by roughly 356,000, where the treasurer's department decreased by 48,000, police department increased by 57,000, roads and bridges increased by 203,000, education, as mentioned, decreased by the 184,000. The non-core function increased by 330,000, which was where I mentioned before we had negative, so they moved that up to the revenue line item. And then debt service principal decreased by 303,007, excuse me. Transfer out decreased by 9,063. So on the general fund budgetary basis, we went from in excess of revenue over expenditures and other financing uses. It went from a surplus of 51,000 to a deficit of 27,853. So $79,000 change. On the school unrestricted fund, employee benefit expenditures decreased by 16,000. So there was a decrease in the deficit originally reported of 16,229. So those are primarily the differences in the major exhibits and schedules in the financial statements. I have an email here. If you'd like, I'd give it to you. It shows just some other edits that were recommended into the financial statements that, if not pushed through in the 22, they will be pushed through in the 23 and the note disclosures. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Discussion from the council. All right, thank you. We're going to move now to introduction of new matters before the council, and we've had Ms. Young waiting quite a bit for a presentation of the hazard mitigation plan by contractor Laura Young from Fairweather Science. Manager Prillo, I don't know if you want to make an introduction before she starts.
So I just want to thank Laura. She's been doing a great job on this, with kind of fast tracking this whole process. The deadline from REMA is October 1st. So that's why we've had several meetings over the last several weeks trying to get this accomplished. So I want to thank the chief and his staff and everyone that's really taken part in really putting a push to get this over the finish line. And this is the final product that hopefully the council will approve, and we can submit to REMA and eventually FEMA for final approval.
Welcome, Ms. Young. Thank you for your patience, and we appreciate you being here. The floor is yours.
All right, I am going to try and share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Affirmative.
Okay, all right. I will try and go quickly, but please feel free to interrupt me. This presentation is for the town of Coventry's 2024 Hazard Mitigation and Floodplain Management Plan update. We did hold a public meeting yesterday, and this is the town council presentation. The town first started hazard mitigation planning in 2005 and has completed updates in 2010 and 2018. The process was formally created by the town's governing board at the June 27th council meeting. We went through the process, which is a FEMA-driven process, where we assembled our team. We involved the public and collaborators. We identified the critical facilities within the community. And then we identified the hazards that impact the community. We overlaid those to find out what's really at risk through the risk assessment. And then we went through and developed a mitigation strategy, which is a list of projects that will reduce or eliminate those risks. And then we worked with the planning team to identify the best ways to monitor the plan as it's implemented over the next 5 years and before the next update. And then the table here on the side just shows different types of projects that can be implemented, that the town will be eligible for, and some of the different funding buckets that the money will come from.
Excuse me, Laura, can you go full screen so we can maybe see some of that?
I think it is full screen. Hold on a second here. Let me see.
We're bringing it up on our iPads over here, so don't go crazy. You can continue.
Okay, all right. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I got coached by your MIS folks, and so we sent out copies, so hopefully everyone has copies of this as well.
We do. Yeah, we do. We got
Okay.
it ahead of time, so you don't have to go too detailed because we were able to review this, but yeah, continue.
Okay, so the hazard screening started with looking at the hazards from the past plan. And then what we did is we rubbed those up against the state of Rhode Island's plan, which was just approved this last year. And then we went through and kind of talked about what's been happening in the community. And so we added one new hazard, which is riverine erosion, based on some of the damages that the public and the planning team had identified. And then we went through an analysis, and this table shows the geographic percentage of area that each one of these hazards impacts, the percentage of critical facilities and utilities that are impacted, the percentage of residents, and then the general level of concern from the planning team. We updated and inventoried the critical facilities within the community, and this is just a snapshot of a map from the mitigation plan. And then we went through, and this is kind of the details of the risk assessment that breaks down the number and value of critical facilities. And then we've kind of broken them down again by the different types of critical facilities within each hazard. And then from there, what we did is we really focused on the projects, because that's the whole point of a mitigation plan, is to identify projects that the town can pursue. And so one of the requirements that FEMA has for us is that we have to identify the status of the projects that were proposed in the 2018 plan. So 3 of those projects were completed, 8 were ongoing or in progress. 3 of the projects had not yet been started, but the planning team would like to complete those. And then 4 of those projects were identified as no longer a priority and removed. So then the next step was to evaluate all of the different ideas that have come from all of the different public meetings, the project surveys, the municipal resiliency program workshop, the findings from the risk assessment, and then suggestions from the planning team. And so we had a total of 49 actions that were evaluated. And then the planning team selected and prioritized 35 of those actions. Then they went through, FEMA requires that they are prioritized, and they have a standard that is used nationally, and it's called the Stapley standard, where we, for each action that we propose, we consider the social impacts, technical, administrative, legal, economic, and environmental. And then we ranked them based on a numerical code and calculation. And we came up with 15 high priority actions, 5 medium, and 15 low priority actions. And in the mitigation plan, we go into quite a bit of detail on who is the responsible department within the town, the time frame, potential funding options, the technical feasibility, and the benefit versus cost of each action. For those projects that you're going to pursue funding for, FEMA will generally require a more comprehensive and rigorous cost benefit analysis for each one of those that is a dollar ask. These are the list of high priority actions. And I'm not going to go through in detail on each one of these. These are the medium and low priority actions. And then I would like to just expand a little bit here on, sorry, on Cheryl's comment. She was specifically commenting about action number 32. So this is to explore the potential for including third-party inspections as part of the development inspection process and within town construction projects when appropriate to reduce risk and improve engineering. And she had requested through public comment at both an individual conversation with myself, and then she provided comment at the public meeting, and specifically wanted to change the priority rating of this particular project from a low to high. And the project team lead agrees with that. So that is something that we are proposing to change in the final plan. And I think she wanted me to just talk about the concept of this, where the planning team had identified areas where they don't feel that they have the authority to put pressure on DEM, where DEM approves an engineering design. And in some cases, it may not be either a good engineering design or it may not be constructed as engineered. And so the proposal was to put something in place within the town that gives the town some control. And if you're going to pursue projects that have engineering, and there could be a potential outcome that could cause damages, to add a third-party inspection to make sure that it was, one, engineered correctly, and two, that it was constructed as engineered, to reduce the risk to the town and the residents, and then definitely reduce the liability to the town in the future. Were there any questions about that specifically? I wanted to make sure that Cheryl's comment was addressed.
No questions.
Okay, all right. So one of the things that is a requirement by FEMA, and REMA had cautioned us last year that one of the things that they're seeing with mitigation plans is not adequate public participation and documentation of that. And so we put together a pretty rigorous public involvement plan. The planning team identified underserved and vulnerable populations and community lifelines at the Housing Authority and the Senior Center. We engaged with the neighboring communities listed here, and these are some of the project stakeholders that were engaged throughout the process. The town and state websites were used for meeting notifications. All of our meetings were open and available to the public and had remote access as well if people weren't able to attend. And the town's MIS department did an excellent job, as well as the emergency management department, of posting on social media to let people know what we were doing. And then in addition to that, we posted a project survey. We received 55 responses, including 11 hard copy surveys returned from the Senior Center. What we found through that survey is those critical facilities that are relied on by the community, how the community feels that they're prepared for emergencies, 30 plus recommendations for mitigation projects, and then some specific requests for town information that the planning team incorporated into the mitigation projects or the mitigation action plan. This is just a summary of some of the the survey results in terms of the natural hazards that the residents are concerned about. What critical facilities and infrastructure do they rely on? How do you receive warnings? Information regarding the National Flood Insurance Program. This helped us with some of the floodplain management components of the plan. And then what actions that community members have taken to prepare themselves for disasters. And then just to reiterate, when we started this project, this is generally a 1 year to 18-month project. And the planning team and the chief requested that we expedite this so that we could get the plan completed and submitted by the 1st of October to make them eligible for mitigation planning projects to pursue them. And so that's our goal. We've completed the plan. The state reviewer attended the public meeting yesterday and has attended several of the meetings throughout the process. So she's been well engaged and knows what we've been up to. And the planning team has been incredibly engaged with great ideas throughout the process to really help protect the community, and has come up with some great projects that I think will really reduce the impacts to the town of Coventry. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. Members of the council, if I may, I think we should just migrate discussion on this up to the resolution that we have, so that way we can keep Ms. Young here for questions and kind of move along to what our ask is this evening. Oh, my mic wasn't on. So we'll bounce up to, if Ms. Young, if you could stay, we're just going to go up to the resolution now on this and move discussion underneath that prior to a vote. So that way, if you could be present, if there's questions, that'd be great. Thank you. So we'll move to item C under resolutions of the council, resolution 2024-73, adoption of the 2024 hazard mitigation and floodplain management plan. It's on page 31 in our packets. To get discussion rolling, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion, Councilman Pasqua, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so my question, I struggle to understand how it's going to fall into the resolution specifically, but it has to do with the hazard mitigation plan. And I guess my question is, as it comes to the plan, is there something in place, or can there be some type of action that runs alongside of this to start looking at the FEMA hazard mitigation assistance grants? Because, I mean, we've just outlined 15 things that we need to do, and there's funding that needs to be acquired to do a lot of that. So, I know FEMA hands out significant amounts of money to deal with this kind of stuff. Is that something that we kind of do in conjunction with this plan? Is that something that this office handles?
It's the whole point of this plan. This plan makes you eligible to pursue those and other grants. And in the mitigation action section, chapter 5, we've identified different buckets of money, including FEMA money, that you will be eligible for. And the state right now is wanting to hand out money. I mean, she told us that in the public meeting yesterday. So that's exactly what this plan does.
Very good.
Any further discussion from the council on this? All right, thank you, Ms. Young, appreciate it. If there's no further discussion, clerk, please take the roll on the resolution.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item A under resolutions, resolution 2024-71, tax assessors abatements. It's pages 27 to 29 in our packet. I don't know if Mr. Savetti or Mr. Fuller want to take this.
So these were, in addition to the previous ones, the council abated two meetings ago based on the same parameters of both the letters and the qualifications. So these people came forward to Ms. Martini and advised the same situation was with them. So we're asking for the similar abatement.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion, members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And lastly, resolution 2024-72, approval of a contract for Perry Corporation, PAR, to conduct a civil, I wouldn't know what PAR is. My golf game's not very good. To conduct a civil engineering study for Station Street regarding stormwater and the feasibility of installing new drainage. This is on page 30 in our packets, and I believe the town manager sent along the previously discussed proposal via email to the council this afternoon. With that, do I hear a motion to approve this?
Yes.
I'll
Motion.
second it.
Motion by Councilman Capaldi, second by Vice President LeBlanc. Discussion. Manager Perillo, any tee up?
No, I know Joe Levesque kind of explained this a couple weeks ago, maybe last month, and the council asked for it to be in a resolution form in order to move forward. So here it is. Going to come out of the contingency fund to do the study and see where we go from here, see if it's even feasible to do anything to help Mr. Lindley's flooding issues.
Discussion. Vice President LeBlanc.
I appreciate the fact that we got this RFP and that we've taken it this far. Just for the taxpayers that are listening, there's a residence where a homeowner had purchased the land, didn't have any problems until development across the street occurred many years after purchasing said property. The pitch of that new development and the pitch of the street is now causing all of this water to go into his property. We have pictures upon pictures. I think I've gotten about 250 photos. I know Miss Ludwig,
Capaldi.
Miss Ludwig also was out there, I think in waders up to her waist where this water was in his yard. It goes into this person's garage. And then I know Ms. Capaldi also has visited this property with myself. And this is us just trying to do right to the property owner. Just wanted to at least provide some clarification.
Councilman Capaldi.
Yeah, I'm very happy that this is coming to fruition, at least this part of it. I did see Mr. Lindley a few days ago just because I was driving by and I stopped and checked in on him, and he was anxious for this night. I hope he's watching. I did speak to the engineer today because I wanted to see if this is is this it? Is this what we can do? And he told me that there's a lot more issues. The water is coming from so many other areas in addition to those new homes that are right across the street. And he said this would be the best plan. So yeah, I'm very excited about this.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Well, we'll now move to public comment for undocketed items, those items not on our agenda this evening. If there's any members of the public in chambers who'd like to speak on a item not docketed this evening, come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Any members of the public on Zoom, please raise your hand to be let in. State your name and address for the record. Public comment going once, twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. And at this time, I will take a motion to adjourn at 8:25 PM.
Make the motion.
Motion by
Second.
Vice President Blank, second by Councilman Capaldi. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.